When a 13-year-old blind boy sat at the Steinway grand piano on the stage of Carnegie Hall, 3,000 people held their breath. His fingers found the keys with the confidence of someone who had played this instrument 1,000 times before. But what happened next would shock everyone in that legendary concert hall. The piano, that beautiful 9-foot concert grand worth $500,000, suddenly betrayed him. A key stuck, then another. The pristine sound that had been flowing like water turned into something broken, something wrong. The boy's hands froze above the keys. The conductor's baton stopped mid-air. The orchestra behind him fell silent. In the audience, people shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This was supposed to be the performance of a lifetime. Instead, it looked like it might end in disaster. But what this homeless boy did in the next 60 seconds would not only save the performance, it would change his life forever. To understand how we got to this moment, we need to go back 6 months earlier to a place where nobody expected to find a musical genius. The Hope Haven shelter in Detroit wasn't the kind of place you'd associate with classical music. It was a 3-story brick building on the east side where the paint peeled from the walls and the radiators clanked through cold Michigan nights. This was where Tobias Crawford lived. Everyone called him Toby. At 13 years old, he had already seen more hardship than most people experience in a lifetime. He had been blind since he was 4 years old, the result of a rare degenerative condition that had slowly stolen his sight. His mother, Sarah Crawford, had raised him alone after his father disappeared before Toby was born. Sarah had worked 3 jobs to keep them afloat, to keep Toby fed and clothed and safe. But 2 years ago, when Toby was 11, Sarah collapsed at her second job of the day. The doctors said it was her heart. She had pushed herself too hard for too long. She died 3 days later in a hospital bed holding Toby's hand and telling him that he had a gift that he needed to share it with the world. After Sarah died, Toby bounced between foster homes. None of them worked out. He was quiet, withdrawn, lost in a world of darkness and grief. Eventually, he ended up at Hope Haven, a shelter for youth in crisis. The building housed about 40 kids at any given time, ranging from teenagers who had aged out of foster care to runaways trying to escape abusive homes. Toby kept to himself. He ate his meals in silence. He did his chores without complaint. Most of the other kids left him alone, though a few of the meaner ones would sometimes mock his blindness, calling him names, or deliberately moving things, so he would stumble. Toby never fought back. He just retreated further into himself, into his memories of his mother, into the one thing that connected him to her. Every night, after lights out, after the staff had finished their final rounds, and the building settled into an uneasy quiet, Toby would feel his way down the hallway. He knew every step, every turn, every doorway. He would slip into the common room, a large space with mismatched furniture and a television that only worked half the time. And in the corner of that room sat an old upright piano. It was a battered thing, probably 50 years old, with chipped keys, and a sound that was more serviceable than beautiful. The shelter had received it as a donation years ago. Nobody played it anymore. Most of the kids didn't even notice it was there. But to Toby, that piano was everything. It was his connection to his mother. It was his escape. It was the only place where he felt truly himself. Sarah Crawford had been a pianist. Not professionally, but she had studied music in community college before life got in the way. She had taught Toby to play when he was very young before he lost his sight. Even after the darkness came, she continued his lessons, teaching him to navigate the keyboard by touch, by memory, by feel. She would place his small hands on hers and let him feel the movement, the pressure, the intention behind each note. She taught him that music wasn't about seeing the keys. It was about feeling the music inside you and letting it flow through your fingers. After she died, the piano became Toby's way of keeping her alive. Late at night, in that empty common room, he would sit at that old upright and play. He played the simple pieces his mother had taught him. He played songs he heard on the radio, figuring them out by ear. And sometimes he played things that came from somewhere deep inside him, melodies that seemed to appear in his mind, fully formed, as if his mother was still there, still guiding his hands. One night in late September, Patricia Hayes heard the music. Patricia was the director of Hope Haven, a woman in her late 50s who had dedicated her life to helping kids who had nowhere else to go. She had been working late in her office catching up on paperwork and grant applications when she heard it. At first, she thought someone had left a radio on, but as she listened more carefully, she realized it was coming from the common room. She walked down the hallway following the sound. What she heard made her stop in her tracks. Someone was playing Rachmaninoff. She recognized it immediately. Prelude in C-sharp minor. It was one of the most technically demanding pieces in the classical repertoire, full of crashing chords and intricate runs. And whoever was playing it wasn't just getting through it. They were making that old, beaten-up piano sing in ways Patricia had never heard before. She pushed open the door quietly and saw Toby sitting at the piano. His blind eyes closed, as if he were seeing the music in his mind, his fingers dancing across the keys with a fluidity that seemed impossible. Patricia stood in the doorway for the entire 4 minutes of the piece, unable to move, unable to breathe. When the final chord faded into silence, she found herself wiping tears from her cheeks. She had worked with hundreds of kids over the years. She had seen talent before. But this was something different. This was something extraordinary. She walked into the room slowly, not wanting to startle him. Toby's head turned toward the sound of her footsteps. His expression was guilty, like a child caught doing something he shouldn't be doing. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I know it's late. I'll go back to bed." Patricia's voice was gentle when she spoke. "Toby," she said, "how long have you been able to play like that?" Toby shrugged. "My mom taught me," he said simply, "before she died." Patricia sat down on the bench beside him. "Can you play something else?" she asked. Toby hesitated, then nodded. He played Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, then Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. He played for 20 minutes, moving seamlessly from one piece to another, each one performed with a maturity and emotional depth that seemed impossible for a 13-year-old boy. When he finally stopped, Patricia knew what she had to do. She had a friend from college, a man named Raymond Mitchell, who had gone on to become a professor at Juilliard, one of the most prestigious music schools in the world. If anyone could help Toby, it was Raymond. The next morning, Patricia called him. "Raymond," she said, "I need you to come to Detroit. I've found something I think you need to hear." Raymond Mitchell arrived 3 days later. He was a tall, distinguished-looking man in his 60s, with silver hair and sharp eyes that had evaluated thousands of young musicians over his 4-decade career. He was skeptical. Patricia had always been enthusiastic, but she wasn't a musician. She probably didn't understand the difference between someone who could play well and someone who had genuine world-class talent. He agreed to come mostly as a favor to an old friend. Patricia led him to the common room, where Toby sat at the old upright piano, his hands folded in his lap, his expression nervous. "This is Tobias Crawford," Patricia said. "Toby, this is Professor Mitchell from Juilliard. He's here to listen to you play." Raymond pulled up a chair and sat down, his face neutral and professional. "What would you like to play for me, Tobias?" he asked. Toby's voice was barely above a whisper. "What would you like to hear?" Raymond thought for a moment. He decided to test the boy with something difficult, something that would reveal whether this was real talent or just memorization and mimicry. "Play me Chopin's Ballade No. 1 in G minor," he said. It was a piece that professional pianists spent years perfecting. If Toby stumbled through it, Raymond would know this trip had been a waste of time. But if he could actually play it well, that would be interesting. Toby turned to the piano. He placed his hands on the keys, took a breath, and began to play. From the very first notes, Raymond knew. This wasn't just talent. This was something he had only encountered a handful of times in his entire career. This was genius. Toby's fingers moved across the keyboard with absolute precision, navigating the piece's treacherous runs and dramatic shifts, with the ease of someone who had internalized every note, every phrase, every emotion. But what struck Raymond even more than the technical perfection was the interpretation. Toby wasn't just playing the notes. He was telling a story. He was pouring emotion into every measure, shaping the music in ways that showed a deep intuitive understanding of what Chopin had been trying to express. When the piece ended, Raymond sat in stunned silence. He had tears in his eyes. In 40 years of teaching, he had never heard anything quite like this. Patricia was watching him with a knowing smile. "Well?" she asked. Raymond turned to look at Toby, who sat quietly at the piano waiting. "Where did you learn to play like that?" Raymond asked, his voice hoarse. Toby turned his blind eyes in Raymond's direction. "My mom taught me the basics," he said. "The rest I just hear it. In my head. Like it's already there and I'm just letting it out." Raymond stood up and walked over to the piano. He placed a hand on Toby's shoulder. "Tobias," he said, "you have a gift. A rare, extraordinary gift. And I think it's time the world heard it." Over the next 2 weeks, Raymond worked behind the scenes to make something happen. He called in favors from colleagues. He reached out to his network in the classical music world. And he sent a video to someone he had known for 30 years, the artistic director of Carnegie Hall in New York City. The video was simple. Just Toby sitting at that old upright piano in the Hope Haven Common Room playing Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2, one of the most beloved pieces in the classical repertoire. Raymond filmed it on his phone. The lighting was bad. The sound quality wasn't great. But none of that mattered. Within an hour of receiving the video, the artistic director called Raymond back. "We have a young talents showcase coming up in March," she said. "It's a program where we feature emerging musicians performing with the New York Philharmonic. I want him." Raymond felt his heart leap. "You understand, he's 13 years old," he said. "He's blind. He's homeless. He's never performed in front of a large audience before." "I understand all of that," she replied. "And I still want him. This is the kind of story people need to hear. This is the kind of talent that doesn't come along very often. Make it happen." When Raymond told Toby about the opportunity, the boy's first reaction was fear. "Carnegie Hall," he whispered. "That's where the greatest musicians in the world perform. I can't do that." "Yes, you can," Patricia said firmly. She had been there when Raymond delivered the news. "You absolutely can do that." "But what if I mess up?" Toby asked. "What if I forget something? What if people laugh at me?" Raymond knelt down so he was at eye level with Toby. "Tobias," he said, "I've taught at Juilliard for 25 years. I've worked with hundreds of talented musicians. And I can tell you with absolute certainty that you are one of the most gifted pianists I have ever encountered. You're not going to mess up. You're going to walk onto that stage and you're going to show the world what you can do. And I'm going to be with you every step of the way. Toby was quiet for a long moment. Then slowly, he nodded. "Okay," he said softly. "I'll do it." The next 4 months were a whirlwind. Raymond came to Detroit every weekend to work with Toby, helping him prepare for the performance. They worked on technique, on interpretation, on stage presence. They chose the pieces Toby would perform Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata for the first half, and then for the second half, a collaborative piece with the Orchestra Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2. It was ambitious. It was risky. But Raymond believed Toby could handle it. As word spread about the upcoming performance, media attention began to build. A local Detroit news station did a story about Toby. Then a national morning show picked it up. Suddenly, this homeless blind boy from Detroit was becoming a symbol of hope, of perseverance, of talent triumphing over circumstance. The pressure mounted. Patricia worried about Toby, about whether this was too much, too fast. But Toby seemed calm. He practiced every day, sometimes for hours. The piano was his refuge, the one place where he felt completely in control. And as the performance date approached, he grew more confident. He was ready. In early March, Toby flew to New York for the first time in his life. Patricia and Raymond accompanied him. The flight itself was an adventure. Toby had never been on a plane before. He sat by the window, even though he couldn't see out of it, and listened to the sound of the engines, feeling the acceleration, and lift the moment when the ground fell away beneath them. When they landed at JFK, the noise and chaos of the airport overwhelmed him. So many people, so many sounds, so much movement. Patricia held his hand as they navigated through the terminal. They took a taxi into Manhattan, and Toby pressed his face against the window, trying to feel the city around him through sound and sensation. The honking horns, the rumble of traffic, the countless voices speaking in a dozen different languages. This was New York. This was where his life was about to change. The first rehearsal with the New York Philharmonic was scheduled for the next morning at Carnegie Hall itself. When Toby walked into the building, he felt the weight of history around him. This was where Tchaikovsky had conducted, where Rachmaninoff had performed, where Bernstein and Horowitz and Rubinstein had graced the stage. And now somehow he was here too. Patricia guided him through the hallways and onto the stage. The piano was already there, a magnificent Steinway concert grand that cost more than most houses. Toby sat down at the bench and touched the keys reverently. The sound that came out was like nothing he had ever heard before. Rich, full, perfect. This wasn't like the old upright at the shelter. This was an instrument built for concert halls, for capturing every nuance, every subtlety. Toby felt a thrill run through him. He could do something extraordinary with this piano. He could make it sing, but not everyone shared his enthusiasm. As the orchestra members filed onto the stage for the rehearsal, Toby could hear the skepticism in their voices. He couldn't see their faces, but he could feel their doubt. They whispered to each other. A 13-year-old blind, from a homeless shelter. This was the New York Philharmonic, one of the finest orchestras in the world. They had performed with the greatest pianists of the last century, and now they were being asked to accompany a child who had never even performed in public before. The conductor, Maestro Vincent Castellano, was particularly skeptical. Castellano was a legend in the classical music world, a man who had conducted orchestras across Europe and America for 40 years. He was known for his perfectionism, his demanding standards, his unwillingness to compromise on quality. When Raymond had first told him about Toby, Castellano had been blunt. "I don't do charity performances," he had said. "I don't care about his story. I only care about whether he can play. If he can't keep up with my orchestra, I won't hesitate to pull the plug." Now standing on the stage of Carnegie Hall, Castellano looked at the small, blind boy sitting at the piano and felt his skepticism deepen. The kid looked terrified. His shoulders were hunched. His hands trembled slightly as they rested on the keys. This was going to be a disaster. Castellano tapped his baton against the music stand to get everyone's attention. "All right," he said, his voice crisp and professional. "Let's start with the Beethoven. Tobias, whenever you're ready." Toby took a deep breath. He placed his fingers on the keys, felt the cool ivory beneath his skin, and began to play. The opening notes of Moonlight Sonata filled the hall soft and haunting. Castellano raised his baton, preparing to bring in the orchestra for the sections where they would accompany Toby. But as he listened, something shifted in his expression. The kid could play. Actually, he could really play. The notes flowed with a precision and emotional depth that Castellano hadn't expected. There were no mistakes, no hesitation, just pure, beautiful music. When the piece ended, there was a moment of silence. Then one of the violinists started to applaud, others joined in. Castellano lowered his baton slowly, his eyes still on Toby. "That was good," he said, and coming from Castellano, that was high praise. "Now let's try the Rachmaninoff. This is where we'll see what you're really made of." The Rachmaninoff concerto was a different beast altogether. It required the piano and orchestra to work in perfect synchronization with complex passages that demanded both technical mastery and deep musical understanding. Castellano didn't expect Toby to get through it on the first try. Most professional pianists needed multiple rehearsals to coordinate with an orchestra. But as they began to play, Castellano felt his skepticism crumbling. Toby wasn't just keeping up with the orchestra. He was leading them. His playing was so confident, so assured, that the orchestra members found themselves following his interpretation, adjusting their phrasing to match his. It was extraordinary. When they finished the first movement, Castellano set down his baton and walked over to the piano. "How many times have you performed this piece with an orchestra?" he asked. "Never," Toby said quietly. "This is my first time." Castellano stared at him in disbelief. "You've never performed with an orchestra before?" Toby shook his head. "I've only ever played alone, or with recordings." Castellano felt something shift inside him. This wasn't just talent. This was something rare, something special, but he wasn't ready to admit it yet. "We'll continue tomorrow," he said gruffly. 9 a.m. sharp, don't be late." Over the next 2 weeks, the rehearsals continued. Every day, Toby and the orchestra worked together, refining the performance, smoothing out the rough edges. And every day, Castellano found himself more impressed. But he was also harder on Toby than he was on anyone else. He pushed the boy relentlessly, demanding perfection, stopping him mid-phrase to correct the smallest imperfection. Some of the orchestra members thought Castellano was being too harsh, but Raymond understood what was happening. Castellano was testing Toby, seeing if the boy would break under pressure. And Toby didn't break. He absorbed every criticism, every correction, and came back stronger. But the pressure was taking its toll. Toby lay awake at night in his hotel room, his mind racing with doubts. What if he messed up? What if he embarrassed himself in front of 3,000 people? What if he let down Patricia and Raymond and all the people who believed in him? He called Patricia one night, his voice shaking. "I don't think I can do this," he whispered. "It's too much. I'm not good enough." Patricia's voice was calm and steady. "Toby," she said, "do you remember the first night I heard you play? You were sitting in the common room all alone, playing Rachmaninoff, like it was the easiest thing in the world. You weren't playing for anyone but yourself. You weren't trying to impress anyone. You were just letting the music flow through you. That's what you need to do on that stage. Don't think about the audience. Don't think about the critics. Just play for your mom. Play the way you did when it was just you and that old piano in the middle of the night. Can you do that?" Toby was quiet for a long moment. Then he said softly, "I'll try." "Good," Patricia said. "That's all any of us can do. Just try." The next day at rehearsal, something changed. Toby walked onto the stage with a different energy. He sat at the piano and started to play, and this time it wasn't about technique or perfection. It was about emotion. It was about the music itself. He played with a freedom and expressiveness that took everyone's breath away. Even Castellano was stunned. When the rehearsal ended, he walked over to Toby and did something he rarely did. He placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. That he said quietly was what I've been waiting for. That was real music. After the rehearsal, Castellano asked Toby to stay behind for a moment. The orchestra filed out, leaving just the two of them on the empty stage. Castellano sat down on the bench beside Toby. "I owe you an apology," he said. "I've been hard on you these past 2 weeks. Harder than I needed to be." Toby turned his blind eyes toward Castellano's voice. "Why?" he asked, simply. Castellano sighed. "Because I didn't believe he said. When they first told me about you, I thought this was a publicity stunt, a feel-good story for the media. I didn't think you could really play at the level required for Carnegie Hall, and I was angry about it because I've spent my entire life working to maintain the standards of this orchestra. I didn't want us to be part of some charity performance, but you proved me wrong. You're not here because of your story. You're here because you're a genuinely gifted musician, and I'm sorry I doubted you." Toby was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Can I ask you something?" "Of course," Castellano said. "Why do you do this?" Toby asked. "Conduct, I mean. You could have retired years ago. You don't need the money or the fame. So why do you keep doing it?" Castellano smiled sadly. "Because music is the only thing that makes sense to me," he said. "I lost my son 15 years ago, car accident. He was 23 years old, just starting his life. After he died, I couldn't function. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't see the point of anything. But then I picked up my baton and stood in front of an orchestra, and for those few hours, the pain went away. The music filled the empty spaces inside me. It gave me a reason to keep going. So I conduct because I have to. Because without music, I don't know who I am." Toby nodded slowly. "That's how I feel," he said quietly. "After my mom died, the piano was the only thing that made me feel like she was still there. Like I wasn't alone." Castellano put his arm around Toby's shoulders. "Then we understand each other," he said. "We're both using music to fill the empty spaces. And tomorrow night we're going to fill that concert hall with something beautiful. Something your mother would be proud of." The day of the performance arrived. Carnegie Hall was sold out. 3,000 people had tickets. The media coverage was intense. Every major news outlet had sent reporters. The story of Tobias Crawford, the blind homeless boy who was about to perform with the New York Philharmonic, had captured the nation's attention. In his dressing room backstage, Toby could hear the murmur of the crowd filing into the hall. Patricia sat beside him holding his hand. Raymond was there too, pacing nervously. "You're going to be amazing," Patricia said. "Just remember what we talked about. Play for your mom. Play for yourself. Don't think about anything else." There was a knock on the door. One of the stage managers poked her head in. "5 minutes," she said. Toby stood up. His heart was pounding so hard he thought it might burst out of his chest. His hands were trembling, but beneath the fear, there was something else. Excitement. This was his moment. This was what he had been preparing for. Raymond walked over and gave him a hug. "I believe in you," he said. "Now go out there and show them what you can do." Toby walked through the corridor toward the stage, his hand on Patricia's arm as she guided him. He could hear the orchestra warming up the random notes and scales blending into a chaotic symphony. Then they reached the wings, and Patricia stopped. "This is as far as I can go," she said. "The rest is up to you." Toby took a deep breath. He felt someone take his other arm. It was Castellano. "Come on, kid," the conductor said. "Let's make some magic." They walked onto the stage together. The moment they appeared, the crowd erupted in applause. Toby couldn't see the 3,000 people filling the hall, but he could feel them. He could feel their energy, their anticipation, their hope. Castellano guided him to the piano. Toby sat down on the bench and placed his hands on the keys. The applause gradually faded. The hall became silent. Castellano walked to the conductor's podium and raised his baton. And then Toby began to play. The opening notes of Moonlight Sonata floated through Carnegie Hall, soft and ethereal. Toby's fingers moved across the keys with absolute confidence. All the fear, all the doubt, all the pressure melted away. There was only the music, only the connection between his mind and his hands, and the piano. He played the first movement with a delicacy and sensitivity that brought tears to people's eyes. Then the second movement, brighter and more hopeful. And finally the third movement, with its dramatic runs and crashing chords. When he played the final note, there was a moment of stunned silence. Then the crowd erupted. People leaped to their feet. The applause was deafening. Toby sat at the piano, his chest heaving, a smile spreading across his face. He had done it. The first half was perfect. During the intermission, backstage was chaos. Everyone was congratulating Toby, telling him how amazing he was. But Toby knew the real challenge was still to come. The Rachmaninoff concerto was longer, more complex, more demanding, and he would be playing with the full orchestra, which meant there was no room for error. When the second half began, Toby walked back onto the stage to another round of applause. He sat at the piano and waited for Castellano's cue. The conductor raised his baton, and the orchestra began the opening measures of the concerto. Then it was Toby's turn. For the next 20 minutes, the piano and orchestra danced together in perfect harmony. Toby played with a maturity and expressiveness that seemed impossible for someone so young. The orchestra followed his lead, responding to every subtle shift in his interpretation. It was magical. The audience sat transfixed, barely breathing. Everything was perfect. Until it wasn't. They were midway through the second movement when it happened. Toby's finger came down on a key, and instead of the clear, beautiful tone he expected, there was a dull thud. The key stuck. He tried again. Another key stuck, and then another. Something was wrong with the piano. Maybe it was a mechanical failure. Maybe a string had broken. Whatever the cause, the instrument that had been producing such gorgeous sounds was suddenly producing wrong notes, dissonant notes. Toby stopped playing. The orchestra faltered and fell silent. Castellano's baton froze in mid-air. The audience gasped. This was everyone's worst nightmare. A technical failure in the middle of a performance at Carnegie Hall. Toby sat at the piano, his hands hovering above the keys. He could feel the panic rising in his chest. This was it. This was the disaster he had been afraid of. Castellano was about to call a halt to the performance. Stage managers would come out and try to fix the piano, but that would take time. The magic of the evening would be shattered. Everything he had worked for would be ruined. In the audience, Patricia felt her heart breaking. Raymond closed his eyes, unable to watch. But then something extraordinary happened. Toby's hands came back down to the keys. But instead of continuing the Rachmaninoff as written, he began to play something else, something new. He was improvising. He had realized that several keys on the piano were producing the wrong notes, so he simply avoided those keys. He created a new melody on the spot using only the keys that still worked. And it was beautiful. It was more than beautiful. It was transcendent. For a moment, Castellano stood frozen, unsure what to do. Then he understood what Toby was doing, and he made a split-second decision. He raised his baton and signaled the orchestra. "Follow him," he mouthed to the musicians. The orchestra members looked at each other in confusion. Follow him, follow what they didn't have sheet music for whatever Toby was playing, but they were professionals. They were some of the finest musicians in the world. So they listened to what Toby was playing and they began to improvise along with him. The violins found a harmony line. The cellos added a counter melody. The woodwinds added color and texture. And gradually, miraculously, they created something entirely new. This wasn't Rachmaninoff anymore. This was Tobias Crawford pouring his heart and soul into the music, telling his story through sound. Every note carried emotion, pain, loss, hope, joy, triumph. It was the story of a boy who had lost everything and found his way back through music. It was the story of his mother's love, of Patricia's faith, of Raymond's belief, of Castellano's transformation from skeptic to mentor. The music built and built, growing in intensity and complexity. The audience sat in stunned silence, witnessing something that had never happened before in the century-and-a-half history of Carnegie Hall. A 13-year-old blind boy was composing a symphony in real time, and one of the world's greatest orchestras was following his lead. Tears streamed down faces throughout the hall. Orchestra members had tears in their eyes, even as they played. Castellano's baton moved through the air with a grace and emotion he hadn't felt in years. This was why he conducted. This was why music mattered. Because it could take a disaster and transform it into something transcendent. Because it could take broken things and make them beautiful. Finally, Toby brought the improvised piece to a close. The final notes hung in the air for a long moment. The last chord faded into silence. And then for 3 full seconds, there was absolute quiet in Carnegie Hall. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. And then the applause began. It started as a ripple and became a wave. It became a tsunami. 3,000 people leaped to their feet, as one, applauding, cheering, some of them openly weeping. The ovation went on for 5 minutes, then 10. People refused to stop clapping. Castellano walked over to the piano and pulled Toby into a fierce embrace. The orchestra members stood and applauded, something they almost never did. Toby sat at the piano, overwhelmed, tears streaming down his own face. He had been so afraid of failure. He had been so sure that something would go wrong. And something had gone wrong. But instead of destroying him, it had given him the opportunity to show what he was truly capable of. Not just technical perfection, but genuine creativity. Not just playing the notes on a page, but creating something entirely new in the moment. In the audience, Patricia and Raymond held each other, both of them crying. They had believed in this boy when nobody else did, and he had proven them right in ways they never could have imagined. The video of that performance went viral within hours. Someone in the audience had been recording on their phone, and by the next morning the footage had been viewed 50 million times. News outlets around the world picked up the story. The blind, homeless boy who improvised a masterpiece at Carnegie Hall became a global phenomenon. Toby appeared on morning shows and late-night talk shows. He was interviewed by major newspapers and magazines. Offers poured in from orchestras and concert halls around the world. Recording companies wanted to sign him. But more importantly than any of that, Julius at Juilliard offered him a full scholarship. He would study with Raymond Mitchell and have access to the best musical education in the world. Patricia's shelter received over $2 million in donations in the week following the performance, ensuring that Hope Haven could continue its work helping kids in crisis for years to come. And Toby moved out of the shelter into a small apartment with a foster family carefully selected by Patricia, a family who understood his needs and his gift. 6 months later, Toby performed at Carnegie Hall again. This time there was no mechanical failure. The piano worked perfectly, but Toby included in his program the improvised piece he had created that night, which he had titled simply Resilience. He had written it down afterward, working with Raymond to capture what he had played. The audience gave him another standing ovation. Castellano, who conducted again, had tears in his eyes as he embraced Toby at the end. After the performance, reporters asked Toby about his incredible journey. They asked him what he had learned from his experience. Toby thought for a moment before answering. "I learned that sometimes the things we think will break us actually make us stronger," he said. "When that piano stopped working, I thought everything was over. But it forced me to find something inside myself I didn't know was there. It forced me to trust my instincts and create something new. And I think that's what life is about. When things don't go according to plan, you don't give up. You find another way. You improvise. You create something beautiful out of the broken pieces." Someone asked him what he would say to other kids who were going through difficult times, who felt like they had no hope, no future. Toby's blind eyes seemed to look directly at the camera. "I'd tell them that talent can be found anywhere," he said. "It doesn't matter where you come from or what obstacles you face. If you have something inside you that you love, something that makes you feel alive, hold on to it. Nurture it. Let it grow. And find people who believe in you, people who will support you when things get hard. Because you can't do it alone. I couldn't have done any of this without my mom, who taught me to love music. Without Patricia, who believed in me when I was just another homeless kid. Without Raymond, who took a chance on me. Without Maestro Castellano, who pushed me to be better than I thought I could be. We all need people who believe in us. And if you're one of those people, if you have the power to help someone discover their gift, please do it. You might change someone's life." Today, Tobias Crawford is 15 years old. He's a full-time student at Juilliard, studying piano performance. He still lives in New York, though he visits Patricia and the kids at Hope Haven whenever he can. He gives free concerts at shelters and schools, trying to inspire other kids to find their own gifts. He's performed with orchestras across the country. He's recorded 2 albums. And he's working on his first full-length symphony, which he plans to premiere at Carnegie Hall on the 2-year anniversary of that incredible night when everything went wrong, and he turned it into something miraculous. When people ask him if he wishes he could see, if he wishes he wasn't blind, Toby always gives the same answer. "Sometimes I wonder what the world looks like," he says. "But then I remember that I experience the world in a different way. I hear things other people don't hear. I feel things other people don't feel. And when I sit at a piano, I don't see the keys. I see the music itself. I see it in my mind, in colors and shapes and emotions. And I think that's a pretty beautiful way to experience the world. His mother would be proud of him. Sarah Crawford, who worked 3 jobs and sacrificed everything to give her son a chance at life, who taught him that blindness wasn't a limitation, but just a different way of seeing, who filled his head with music and love and the belief that he could do anything. She would be proud that her son took the gift she gave him and shared it with the world. She would be proud that he didn't let hardship destroy him, that he found light in the darkness, that he turned pain into beauty. And every time Toby sits at a piano, every time his fingers touch the keys and the music begins to flow, he feels her there with him, guiding his hands, filling his heart, reminding him that love never really dies. It just transforms into something else, something that echoes through time, something that sounds a lot like music,